do you want to build a bee habitat or take your existing habitat to the next level? The Bee Stewards Program is an introductory course that will teach you about the diversity of bees and how to meet your various needs through careful landscape design and plant selection. So you can learn more with the instructor who is here with us tonight, entomologist Dr. Jen Hayes. She's a postdoctoral scholar from Oregon State University Pollinator Health Lab and leads the Extension Bee Stewards Program. She's been studying bees for over 10 years. She started as a field tech collecting bees in Vermont berry farms, moved to surveying bees from across ecosystems, including Ecuadorian cloud forests, prairies in North Dakota, and the Oregon Coast Range. I think we got questions there. She received her PhD while working with Dr. Gail Langelatto's Garden Ecology Lab, evaluating pollinator visitation to native plants and plant cultivars. And I heard that story on Pollination podcast, so you can too if you want to see more about her. So welcome, Jen.
Great. Yeah. Hi. Thanks for the introduction. I'm excited to talk with you all tonight. I did recognize some names. So for you Bee Atlas people, sorry for doing the same spiel again, but this is a little bit different. So let me see what I haven't said about myself. Yeah, I'm from Vermont. I found my way to Oregon because I don't really like the snow. And I said I would never go to grad school, but I really can't imagine doing anything but studying pollinators and their plants. So I did end up going to grad school. And I'm really lucky to have a job right now doing what I love with the Pollinator Health Lab. So my current project that I'm working on looks at pollinators, both bees and butterflies, on Western Oregon roadside right-of-ways with different mowing schedules. And then, yeah, I'm also an instructor for the Bee Stewards Program, the Master Melittologist Program. I also manage the Oregon Bee Atlas Instagram page. Sorry if you hated my April Fool's post. And then to really show you how much of a nerd I am, I just took a picture of this, which I have on my fridge. My fellow bird nerds always have like a list of the bird species in their neighborhood on their fridge. So I decided that I would make a list of the bees I've seen in my neighborhood and also butterflies. That's the butt watch. So, yeah, that's all I'll say about myself for now. So the Bee Stewards Program was born out of one of the goals of the Oregon Bee Project. So to enhance habitat across the state through trainings, connecting land managers to resources, and making restoration more efficient by identifying important nectar and pollen resources for bees. The program was originally designed for really large land managers like farmers and woodlot owners, but we recently updated it to accommodate land managers of all sizes, including home gardeners. So the program is offered by Oregon State University Extension, and it's a sister program to the Master Melittologist, Master Beekeeper, and Bee Advocate programs. It's an online self-paced course made of 5 modules, and the main topics that we cover are bee biology and landscape design for bees. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit more about the content in each of the sections today, and I probably won't take up the whole time. So the course includes 2 major final projects, one of which is an iNaturalist inventory of the plants and pollinators at a site of your choosing. And then we use this inventory to create a stewardship report, which I'll get to in a little bit. The second is a habitat enhancement plan, which is a landscape design with targeted steps to improve habitat resources for bees at a site based on everything that bee stewards learn in the course. So the program starts with our module on becoming a bee steward, which is an introductory module, and then it's followed by a section on bee biology, which we use as a framework for the remaining modules. So this section covers the importance of bees, some basic anatomy to teach stewards how to tell them apart from other insects, life history traits like sociality and diet breadth, And then we also cover some basic taxonomy, including the 6 major bee families found in North America. We cover principles and myths of bee habitat and close out with a section on basic identification skills using August Jackson's Bees of the Willamette Valley Simplified Guide to Genera, and then also some bumblebee guides. So in the life history section, we cover things like how you all already know this. Many bees don't actually live in hives. Most of them actually live in small holes in the soil, and some of them build their nests in little cavities using materials that range from mud and leaves to petals from flowers. We also include other essential background on bees, again, that's used as a framework for the rest of the course. We rely on iNaturalist a lot in this course. So we use photos and bumblebees as a starting point for learning how to fill out a color chart and then using available identification resources to try and put names on our bees, whether they're bumblebees or others. But bumblebees are always a good starting point until you learn about all of the morphs that look exactly the same. The following section is on conducting a habitat assessment. So this includes some instruction on making a site map, examining plant communities, and photo monitoring. The information that stewards have learned about bees is then used to guide them to further explore the lands that they manage to look for habitat opportunities, shortfalls, and to understand their site conditions so that they can make the best plant selections for their site. Here are a couple examples from student submissions. So a map on the left of a steward with a pretty big property. And then on the right is a steward who was looking to do a meadow next to their solar array. In this section, they also start building their plant inventory, and many folks also start documenting their insect community at the same time. So it's really cool to see both the plants and the bees and other pollinators that are already occurring in people's landscapes. The building habitat module is one of the most dense in terms of the amount of course material that we present people with. It has sections on plant selection, site establishment, planting techniques, integrated pest management, and weed management. We also have an assignment in this section which asks stewards to research plants that are native to their ecoregion that they might want to include in their habitat, and then to find out if they're commercially available and to find a local source where they could buy that plant. This module is also where one of the final projects is completed. So an iNaturalist project of their site, which maps the locations of all of the plants and insects that they found. This is an example from Abbey Road Farm, which is one of the Oregon Bee Project flagship farms. The iNaturalist project is really key to our stewardship reports, which I briefly mentioned before and we'll go to in the next slide. We ask stewards to have a minimum of 50 observations, which can be a little tricky if you have a pretty small area that you're working with. But if you document both the plants and the insects that you see, it's pretty easy to get above that 50 minimum. Okay, so stewardship reports. This is one way that our program is unique. And that is really because of our relationship with the Oregon Bee Atlas. So we use the data from the Oregon Bee Atlas, Washington Bee Atlas, and other regional atlas programs to create a customized report for our bee stewards. So the report takes the species list from the iNaturalist project and connects it to the Bee Atlas plant-bee interaction database. So then we're able to predict the bees that are likely at a site based on the plant species and region data. We also then are able to provide specific recommendations of native plants from their ecoregion that they could add to grow their bee diversity. Our goal is that these reports will help stewards with their last final project, the Habitat Enhancement Plan. Right now, we can only make reports for students located in a region with an active bee atlas unless their ecoregion extends through an area that does already have a bee atlas. And so the current atlases exist in Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, Idaho, and New Mexico. So the course wraps up with the Habitat Enhancement Plan module, which ties all of the course information together. We cover how to make a habitat plan, and then we ask stewards to put together a plan to meet the needs of bees in their landscapes. The program doesn't actually necessitate that you implement this habitat. So people that don't manage any land but are still interested in bees and landscape design are still welcome to join this course. These are some examples from student submissions. So on the left here, we have a bloom calendar where a steward was picking out different plants to have something flowering through all of the months with bee activity. And then on the right, we have some photos of young plantings from a bee steward who did implement their habitat plan. So we have some romer's fescue mixed with some other perennials and shrubs over here. And then this is the start of a hedgerow on the right. This is another really wonderful example of habitat implemented by a bee steward. So going from pretty much grass and not much else to a whole corner filled with shrubs and another corner filled with a bunch of different flowering plants. The Bee Stewards program is really, really exciting for me to be a part of right now because my husband and I actually just bought our first house this fall. So this is not necessarily the first landscape that I've been able to design, plant, and manage, but it is the first one where I get to do whatever I want. And so I'm actively learning new things and updating the course as I run into resources, issues, and other findings that might be useful. So this is what the listing photos of our house look like. It was all landscape fabric under about 6 inches of mulch on this right side. And it seems like it's been that way for at least the last 12 years based on satellite imagery that I was able to find. So we started by removing all of that landscape fabric, revealing a lot of really compacted clay soil. And we've been slowly adding more and more and more plants. I took this photo today. So every time I do a presentation, I get to add a layer. But it's been really exciting to see other people who have just planted something or they're thinking about planting something. And then I can say, oh, I got my Douglas spirea at a soil and water conservation district plant sale as a bare root, and it was only $5 compared to if you were to buy it right now when it has a bunch of foliage and is about to flower, that's probably more like a $22 purchase. Oh, and we've expanded onto other areas of the yard as well. This strip all the way on the left is kind of our chaos zone, but there's a very thick patch of Clarkia or Farewell to Spring going through the middle, which I'm very excited about. It looks like a ground cover right now, so it's just gonna explode once we get to mid-June, I'm hoping. Anyway, back to the course. So in addition to completing the modules, We ask all bee stewards to attend at least one live Zoom session with instructors so that they can have an opportunity to interact with us as well as other members of the program, ask questions, and share ideas. We hold quarterly check-in sessions and also run a webinar series in the non-summer months to help fill this requirement. And so just an example from last month's check-in session, I did a little primer on some of our common bumblebee lookalikes. Anyone already know how many species are in this photo? Feel free to unmute or drop into the chat in case anyone else needs a primer. Or I can just speak. Oh, someone says 3.
I was thinking maybe 2. 1, 2.
Okay. Any other guesses?
Maybe 1.
Ooh. A pessimist.
I'm going with
I'm gonna go with 2.
Okay. Great. Thank you for your participation. So we have 4 species here. And yeah, this is my my favorite and my least favorite group, the vase lookalikes. So we have Bombus vosnesenskyii, Bombus van Dijkii. That one's kind of rude of me to choose that angle so that you really can't tell, but that was kind of the goal of this slide. Bombus fervidus californicus and Bombus caliginosus on the right. Distinguishing Van Dijkii, the yellow band on the abdomen is on T3. It's on T4 in Vosnesenskyii californicus and caliginosus. And occasionally you see a little bit of a split in the center of that band as well. For Fervidus californicus, you're looking for the lack of yellow hair on the head. And then distinguishing caliginosus and vase, I don't try, which is why all my iNaturalist observations are at the level of pyrobombus. But it's because it requires a really good view of the cheek length in females and genitalia in males. Caliginosus tend to be smaller, found in more humid and coastal regions, but those aren't diagnostic features. I've collected 1 caliginosus in the 8 years that I've been in Oregon, so I just kind of default to Vosnesenskyii and hope for the best. But yeah, so that's a little sampling of what we do in our quarterly Zoom sessions. The last requirement that we have is that stewards conduct at least 1 outreach event in their community. So we provide them with resources through the OSU Bee Advocate program. So lots of handouts and other materials. And the Washington Bee Atlas will also provide Washington specific resources if you email Caleb Langford, although I know as a society, you all have some really amazing resources to offer as well. Let's see. And yeah, so our program started with the goal of growing bee habitat in Oregon, but bee stewards come from 7 different US states and 2 Canadian provinces, at least since I last checked. It's suitable for land managers it's suitable for all types of land managers as well as people still dreaming about having land to manage. Registration comes with a 215-page course manual full of resources, a yard sign, a hat, as well as access to the online modules, a certificate when you finish, and then a bunch of other curated resources for people who really just want to learn more about plants and bees. Registration currently costs $250, but there's a discount for master melittologists. Conversely, if you complete the Bee Stewards program, you will get a discount to the master melittologist program. And so that is all that I've put together today. So plenty of time for questions and more bee photos potentially.
Sweet. Thank you. That's really interesting. I like that it's expanding, and I haven't even looked at the bee advocates yet. So it's neat that we can share so much stuff in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, the Bee Advocates is just it's free, and it's basically a 45-minute video that you watch. And it teaches you about the resources that OSU offers. And so then you can fill out a form and request free bee outreach materials from OSU.
Nice. They send out a lot of really good stuff. We love using it, and we always have to get more. People love it.
So how many people have signed up for the Bee Steward program in Oregon and also in Washington? Do you have those numbers?
I don't have them like off the top of my head, but I could look it up right now. I want to say it's like 70 something from Oregon and then less from Washington, maybe like 10 to 20. I see a couple questions in the chat. You can enter anytime. There's no time limit on the course. The Bee Advocate program is the video that you watch for that is included in the Bee Stewards program. So if you do the Bee Advocate training, you don't have to watch the video again in the Bee Stewards. But that's just one video with overlap. The content in Bee Stewards is completely different from the content in the Master Melittologist program.
Just wondering, what type of or people have signed up? I mean, are they landscape professionals, homeowners, people who oversee campuses, etc.?
Yeah, we've had a wide range of people. There have been people that I've been a little surprised that have joined because I'm like, I feel like you already have so much information. So I would say the vast majority are homeowners. A lot of them already in like Master Gardener or have like a backyard habitat certification. So we are definitely found by like the ecologically minded folks. We do have some larger landowners, so people with farms, large and small. Some woodland or woodlot managers. Some people that don't have land that they manage. So someone did a project on like a local park, and there was another one who used like a community garden. We have a couple people who work in restoration. There's someone who works with the city of Portland and is going to be doing like a pollinator garden as part of their job that ended up joining. So yeah, we do have quite a spread of people in terms of the land that they're working with, as well as their background.
And a kind of related question: Did you have like a target audience in mind, or did you have kind of expectations? And if so, I mean, are there any differences in what you expected and what the reality is?
Yeah, again, the program was initially designed for large landowners, but we ended up getting a lot of home gardeners, and so the course material just wasn't really relevant. Like a home gardener doesn't need to know how to calibrate a backpack sprayer,
Right.
and probably isn't going to be doing a massive, you know, change in a landscape. And so when we relaunched the course in March, we updated a lot of the modules to have content that is specific for large land managers alongside content that is more specific for smaller land managers. And so I have a couple pages in the modules where it's like, if you're a small, or if you have a like home garden, like you can skip this section, unless you know, are really interested.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have another question. Do you use any landscape design software to help you with your um, sighting of plants, etc.?
I discussed some options, but I personally use a pen and paper or the digital version of a pen and paper. And I do the instruction that way so that it's more accessible to people that might not be tech savvy enough to manage a more complicated landscape design app or
So,
program.
so the digital would that be CAD or something like that, computer aided design or something similar?
I have just do my drawing in
Okay,
Illustrator personally.
okay.
Yeah.
And then you said you use iNaturalist, so do you do like projects for each one or
Yeah, so every bee steward makes their own iNaturalist project.
okay, and so you learn how to do that through the Bee Stewards program?
Yes.
Oh, that's very valuable.
Also, the Melitoflora is for getting more and more useful up here. You guys already have it.
I know I can't wait till that.
For other people, the people that do the bee atlas turn in photos of the plants, not the bees, because you can't see a bee in a picture a lot of times. And so we added thousands and thousands of plant data points, and they've taken them and put them on the map in locations so you can find out what's blooming when and what bees are using it and things like that. Is that going to get to be to the like species level, or have I just not figured out how to work it yet?
That is a later addition. It was already so much to just
Yeah.
get to the genus level, especially with all of the different plants.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's coming in like the next iteration. But the focus right now is getting every atlas region their own melitoflora. And then
Oh,
the next step is to make all the other updates.
wow. It's going to be really cool.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to give Tony credit for this, but at a past board meeting, he brought up the concept of reaching out to commercial landscape people so that they can learn some of the basics when they're going out to work on people's lawns to say we can do this versus that, and you'll increase the pollinator habitat that you know by doing it this way. So is that something that the materials could be modified to target that audience? Maybe not through the full program, but just to get, fairly understandable, digestible information to people on the ground who could use it, all over the city or state.
Yeah, one of the things that I am working on but had to put a pause on because I have a field season I have to deal with right now is getting the course certified for continuing education credits for landscape professionals. And so I've been looking first into the Oregon landscape. I can't remember what the acronym is, but so that landscapers could enroll in the course to get a continuing education credit. Um, and I think that would be a really great way to help expand into that audience. Um, but as far as like kind of taking some of this and turning it into materials for um, that audience, that hasn't been something that I've thought about yet, but it might be something we can look to in the future.
That sounds great because it just seems like that's an untapped resource of people actually doing work on the ground that could,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of them. So
Yeah, following up on that.
Actually, I guess Tony, if you don't mind, I'll speak up.
Oh, good, great.
Hi, Jen.
Hi.
My name's Gabby. I I'm a graduate from the horticulture school at South Seattle College here in Western Washington. It's in Seattle. I would love to help be part of that, expanding the Bee Steward program here. So,
That would be great. Yeah, if you want to send me an email, then we can talk more, and that would be awesome.
What, if any, response have you gotten from professional landscape people, if you presented them with your ideas?
I haven't been in front of a professional landscape audience really. I don't think it's been a group that we've been targeting quite yet. But with my current project, that will be changing. So it's expected that I'll be presenting at some like vegetation maintenance conferences moving forward through our collaboration with the Oregon Department of Transportation on the roadside pollinator project.
Yeah, because I think a landscape company who really just sort of gets it is just gonna they're just gonna make bank because I'm just seeing talking with people at the fest we do, doing macro photography walks around my neighborhood. I'm seeing 50, 60% of neighborhoods where they've just taken out the lawn and it's not be all pollinator plus or pollinator habitat, but people are making the effort, and I mean they might not even know what native plants they have, but they have native plants. They have ground nests and it's starting to catch on, and I think that if landscape professionals who catch on to it are really gonna just make bank.
Yeah, I do know. It's funny. I know a lot of people who work in restoration and own like small native plant nurseries who are doing this work. Um, and I guess they count as like landscape professionals 100%. But I was kind of thinking about like the larger scale landscape professionals, and that's definitely an area we have not tapped into. But I think there has been a huge amount of progress that's been happening with those smaller scale businesses who are really tapped into the benefits of ecology and, doing like urban rewilding of people's yards. And that's been really amazing to see in the few places that I've lived in Oregon. It feels like my neighborhoods have like more like non-traditional front yards than I would have ever expected. And
Right.
it's really cool to see that number keep growing.
Are you finding the same thing I do? If one person starts doing it in the neighborhood, then other people start picking it up, like their neighbors, and that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, oh, that's a great idea. I'll do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I haven't been anywhere long enough to really see like who's started it and who's followed, but everywhere I've moved, there's already been a really a large number of non-traditional lawn spaces or yard spaces.
We have a question in the chat.
Mm.
Mike Gruder wants to know what your 3 favorite plants in your new yard so far
Oh,
are.
how can I choose three?
I have a feeling
Um,
Clarky is one of them.
Clarkia is one of
Oh, but if
my
we had to.
all-time favorite plants. It is why it's on our logo and sign. Sidalcia is the other plant on the logo, if you didn't catch that.
Is that a mallow?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, checker mallow. I think my favorite plant is like any one that starts blooming. So right now I'm really jazzed about we have some Penstemon ovatus that's flowering. So I've got like a tiny little pop of purple. Clarkia is obviously up there. Um, and I just find them all precious. Oh, we just got sorry, the plant excitement really never ceases to have energy there. One of my new favorite plants is called white stem fracera.
Hmm.
Which I saw in Washington for the first time. I went to Catherine Creek in the gorge about a week and a half ago, and we came upon the small patch of it. Um, There were maybe like 5 or 6 plants flowering, and it was in the shade, and it was covered in insects.
Hmm.
And I was like, this is a plant that I need to have. And so I was scouring the internet for a native plant nursery that had it. And I found one in Southern Oregon. And then I just happened to see somebody share a photo of another nursery in the gorge that happened to have it. And so I have 4 of those sitting in my front yard waiting to get planted. They will probably not flower for 2 more years. So it's one of those plants that you get and you sit and you wait and you know it's going to be amazing once it starts flowering. Um, in my husband and I used to live in Corvallis before we bought our house in Portland, and we had sea holly in our front yard. It's like a blue, looks like a thistle, kind of a weird aster. And that was one of the like most visited plants in our yard by all types of insects. And I was like, I I feel very happy to see this activity in the yard, but that plant is like it has invasive tendencies. It has a massive taproot. And I was like, I just don't feel good about planting that in my next place. So what I'd like to do is find a substitute, and I think white stem Fracera is going to be the substitute for that plant. So there's your long story for that.
It's a beautiful plant. I found it going up to the state park at Dallsport across from Dalles on the Washington side. And it was on the other side of a fence, so I stood at the fence and took pictures as far in as I could go because I didn't know whose land it was. um,
Could you guys put that in chat so we can get the spelling?
Yes, absolutely.
what about seed saving and sharing and that sort of thing? Do you guys talk about that at all?
Um, a very little bit. There's talk about a little bit of seed collection, but that is one of the sections in the building habitat that
Mhm.
I know that I actively want to expand, especially as when my husband and I go to a nursery, we look for the pots that have several plants in them. You got to learn all of the tricks.
I like the ones
To
with hitchhikers, so you get 2 different kinds.
Yes, those are also really important things to look for, as long as they're not invasive hitchhikers, as I have found at some places.
Yeah.
But those are like some of the little things that I know I want to add in. Um, and again, like, you start to gather all of these little tips and tricks to make doing a restoration project in your own yard on your own dime a little bit more efficient and a little bit cheaper. It's not always about like, what is the price of this plant, but what is the price of this plant compared to how many plants I can get out of this one pot?
Is there also sort of advice of things not to do, like things that you shouldn't plant that are going to be invasive or et cetera? Because that's another caveat that any person
Yeah.
who's interested in doing pollinator habitat has to worry about.
Yeah, we really do try to steer people towards buying native plants since they tend to be really underrepresented in urban landscapes in the first place. And so we do give people the tools to like find out a plant's native status. We don't necessarily have a list of plants not to plant because we do have people from so many different regions that something that maybe we shouldn't plant in Oregon, maybe it's totally fine in a different area. Phacelia is like a really good example of that. Like everybody loves Phacelia, but Phacelia tannacetifolia is like invasive in like small area of Southern Oregon. Um, and so, yeah, we don't want to say like never plant this plant, although there are some plants that I think could go into those categories, like Scotch broom and bachelor buttons. I see Gabby reacting about the bachelor buttons. Yeah, we do have a section on like bee habitat, like myths, as well. And I do like a deep dive into should you have a bee hotel or not.
Good.
And I also have a section that goes through like what is a wildflower and how do I know if this mix is actually wild or not?
Yeah.
That
What
is,
does that mean?
yeah, nothing. It means nothing.
So we got a hand up from
Yeah.
Kevin.
Oh,
Um,
good.
has anybody started considering looking at the pre-contact Native American horticulture and the amount of remnant from that horticulture that's still growing here?
Ooh.
My local Andrina have been using some of that remnant that was left behind.
Yes, strawberries.
Strawberries, hawthorn,
So,
they
well, they wouldn't
probably are
plant
using
salal.
vaccinium,
Berries.
salal, which is an invasive plant outside of the West Coast, and can be very invasive even here. It was a food crop.
That hasn't been something that we've necessarily incorporated into the project yet or the program, but is super important, especially for those large land managers, knowing how that land was traditionally managed, would be really useful and also helping decide what plants to incorporate.
There's an awful lot of vaccinium ovatum up through the lowlands of Puget Sound, Kitsap Peninsula, and on like that, wraps around the Olympic Peninsula, comes down the Washington coast, into the Oregon coast, down the Oregon coast, and into the redwoods. Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
If I could add, I just came from a meeting today where in the Olympia area, we do conservation grazing. And they went out to an area and over 5 years, they were able to, through the use of, again, conservation grazing with cattle, to clear out a lot of the reed canary grass. And in its place after 5 years, the camas, all the seeds and that were in the ground all started coming out. It takes them about 5 years if you do it by seed versus bulbs. But the pictures, when you look at the before and the after, it's just large swaths of purple camas. It was very impressive, such that they invited the Native Americans 2 different times to come and harvest the camas bulbs. It was quite impressive.
Do they have to keep the cattle to keep the grass, that canary grass down? Does it fight back or?
Well, so what you do is you do a time grazing. So you do it at a certain time for a certain amount of time, so to keep, otherwise that doesn't get the light. Reed canary is so invasive and grows so tall, it just shades it all out. So yes, they've been doing it, the cattle, with that time grazing, and for 5 years, and it's impressive.
That is. Where is that at?
It's down by Tenino.
Oh, okay.
If you look up Tracking Y Ranch website, he'll talk about conservation grazing.
Awesome. That's really good to know.
Yeah.
Other alternatives.
Exactly. And, so cattle are a tool. It's like goats clearing out blackberries.
Awesome. Anybody else got more questions?
No, but I think that going back on the cattle, I think that also helped the habitat for the red-legged frog.
Really?
Well, it's the spotted frog. They've already shown that with Tracking Y Ranch. He's cleared out the reed canary so that the frogs can actually get to the ponds and lay the eggs. And so they've studied it and shown the increase in the number of frogs, all that good stuff.
Wow. Very cool. Jen, we were talking a little bit about events and the different kinds of events that you were doing for the Bee Stewards. Can you remind me more about that?
So opportunities like the Vancouver Pollinator Festival have been great because the event is doing all of the volunteer management, and I don't have to be concerned about any of that. but stewards can find their own opportunities to do outreach or like plan their own events. It doesn't have to be something that like we're necessarily sponsoring out of the program.
Does the I don't know the Oregon plant people very well. We have the Washington Native Plant Society has different regions, and a lot of them do plant sales. That seems like a perfect connection. I don't know if you do that in Oregon.
Yeah, our soil and water conservation districts usually have sales. The timing just wasn't right for me to like reach out to people for that this year.
When I was talking to Jen earlier, I like that it's for people who don't want to be in the bee atlas, that don't like collecting bees and pinning them. You get to learn about the bees, and then you get to feed them by making them really pretty flowers in your garden or wherever, planting more things. So helping all the pollinators, and that's a really cool goal. I really like that.
Yeah. And then maybe you decide you do want to catch them.
Maybe.
And
if you don't, we love lots of photo people up here. Our bee project has over, I haven't looked, it might be up to 70,000 bees now. It was close to 68,
Wow.
I think, the last time I looked at it. And that was because when we first started, we couldn't collect bees in Washington, so we started that way. We have a lot of really good photography people. It's very fun. Also, when you're out there, I looked at I was at Fred Meyer, and they had these beautiful short sunflowers that are supposed to put out 50 flowers in a season, and you don't have to keep replanting them, and they're really beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And I looked it up, and at the bottom it says there's no pollen. So they're really good in bouquets and not so great for pollinators. It doesn't say anything about nectar, so I don't know if there'd be nectar, but planting a plant for bouquets is one thing, but if you want to plant it for pollinators, read the fine print.
Thank you for the great turnout. My count was we had over 70, close to 80 people on. So that's
And
pretty
they
impressive.
stayed till the end.
86 was our max.
All right. It was 3 pages on the screen, and people are just now starting to leave. So thank you very much.
Well,
Thanks, Jen.
you know, when you become a bee nerd, you become a plant nerd. It's that simple.
Yeah, they go hand in hand. You can't be a bee nerd without a plant. Speech is hard at this late at night. You can't be a bee nerd without also becoming a plant nerd.
Agreed.
Thank you for hanging out with us, everybody. I'll take
It's
it.
cool. Bye now.
Good night.
Bye.